everyone. Here we are, 30 minutes gone past 7 o'clock on a Monday morning, a rainy Monday morning. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shopper Martins.
And I'm Victor Pepple.
And joining us for the next half hour is Mr. C. You may know him as Monsieur C on the social media platforms. Mr. C, how you doing? Good morning. You made it through the rain. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Shopper. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Lagos. I hope the rainy weather doesn't get us down.
Yes. I also hope it has not made you decide to resign from that job you don't like. You're like, nah, today's the day. This is the one for me. Immediate effect. Goodbye, people. All right, so we would love to get your thoughts on the different stories and, just join the conversation. You can do that across the different platforms. We're already streaming live up on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. If you're using the app, then we are at smooth981. You can leave a comment up on the live stream and we will be able to get your comments in on the conversation. You can also send WhatsApp messages into 0809 440 981.
All right, so let's get the show
You can take
started.
it to Twitter. We are at Smooth981FM on Twitter. Tag us. We'll see your comments and your messages. Okay, so the very first topic that we've got going on is this. So we've been talking about brain drain and medical brain drain to be more specific for quite a while on Freshly Pressed. And here's another one for you from the Punch newspaper. 500 senior doctors, not just any old regular doctors, senior doctors left Nigeria. That is according to the Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria, who said the president, actually, Dr. Victor Makanjola, said this, and I quote, "In the last 2 years, over 500 consultants have left the services of government hospitals for practice abroad. All our government hospitals are consultant-led, which is the global standard practice. Now, we lose 500 consultants in just 2 years, and we have found out that those who are more likely to leave are the younger ones." My goodness. The numbers are just terrifying at this point, but 500 consultants gone over the past 2 years, from what we're saying, from what we're hearing. But we already know that this is just a subset of the medical practitioners within the country, and the number is much larger.
Correct, Shopper. So this is very disturbing news because these are the figures from 2 years in the government hospitals, right? We haven't taken into account the consultants in the private sector that are also leaving. Now, what were the figures before 2020? We don't have those figures, right? And it's very disturbing because to be a consultant, at least in Nigeria, you've easily done 10 to 15 years. Easy. And that wealth of experience, when a consultant goes, you've lost at least 10 to 15 years. You could then argue that there are other doctors, but those other doctors haven't gotten to that
That's a
level
wealth
yet.
of experience that's just gone
Yes.
down the drain,
And now
the brain drain.
it's instructive that these are the consultants that teach the medical students.
So, let me just put this way. When we've been talking about the medical brain drain, part of the conversation has been that it doesn't necessarily have to be doom and gloom, because as people go, they come back and they bring the experience that they've gotten from other climes into our country, and that can only be a good thing, even if we have to wait some years for it. But this one is no. There's no positive way of fashioning this, is there?
You know, Shopper, it's really bad. And the last time I remember it being this bad, we had to get in Cuban doctors. I think this was under one of the military regimes. Now, it's instructive that when they go out, given the bleak and dire state of our economy right now, there's no, it's looking very slim that they will actually come back anytime soon. So you're losing 500 consultants. The people who are left behind, are they also consultants? And even within the range of consultants, you have people who just make consultants. You have consultants who've been on that level for 15, 20, 30 years. And the current retirement rate for consultants in government hospitals is 60 years.
Now, one of the well, in fact, there were a couple of things that he said. Okay, maybe we can mitigate this issue, this problem, and he said increase the retirement age for consultants in hospitals from 60 to 70 years.
Yeah, so that's an option, right? But if I'm a 60-year-old consultant and I get an offer to work in the UK, I get an offer to work in the States, I get an offer to work in the Middle East, Qatar, Dubai, Kuwait, why am I going to stay in Nigeria? I have no reason to stay in Nigeria because do not forget, at that point in time, the children have probably grown up, they've left the house, they're probably married. So I'm all alone. I still have 10 years to maximize or profit from my talents and the knowledge I've acquired over the years. Why will I give it to an ungrateful Nigerian state?
Now, my question is this the administration to be telling this information to?
So you have to start with them. You have to start the message somewhere. And I sincerely hope at least some of the presidential aspirants are reading the same news we're reading, are getting the same facts and figures, and are already formulating policies to try to stem or staunch the flow in the short term. Because really and truly, we have very huge issues before us, and I do not envy any of the presidential aspirants. In fact, I'm wondering why they even volunteered to run for office. Some of them. For some of them, it's clear they have other reasons for running, but for the serious ones, I'm wondering why.
At
Or
the end
why
of the
not?
day, if we, um, any good president is not going to have any sort of easy time once he assumes his position because in the incoming administration or the next administration rather, because there's just so many problems right now.
True. And
I would hope to see more gray hairs, people.
one of the immediate fallout of this action, if this doesn't stop, is the quality of education being given to aspiring medical doctors will drop.
Mm.
Because these are the people who should teach them. And the
Right.
people who should teach them are leaving the country. So who exactly is left to teach? Yes, there are few private universities that have teaching hospitals, but clearly everyone cannot attend the private schools for varying reasons.
So I'm going to close this part of the conversation until we get your messages about it on this quote, still from the same Dr. Makonjola, who says, "The disaster which brain drain will bring will be doubled because we will lose the younger ones and the older ones will retire about the same time. And unfortunately, we will find a medical system without consultants."
Now let's take it over to Daily Post and all the way to Anambra State. Now, news coming in from the Daily Post, not good at all. Policemen fear killed as gunmen attack Ifeanyi Ubah's convoy. An unspecified number of police operatives have been killed at Enugu community in Jikoka, local government area of Anambra State, as unidentified gunmen attacked the convoy of Senator Ifeanyi Ubah. Sources said the gunmen opened fire on the convoy and police operatives in the convoy responded. However, it was said that the gunmen may have been after the senator, but there is no evidence to prove that they were after him. Is this connected to the politics in Anambra State or ahead of 2023? And this is the first time, perhaps in about 2 months, we get to hear about unknown gunmen attacking in the east. Are we hearing a resurgence? Are they coming back again harder than they were?
Okay, so our thoughts go out to the families of policemen who are feared dead from this attack. And Victor, when you say this is the first time in 2 months, maybe this is the first time it's being reported.
Okay.
In that part of the country and in many other parts of the country, there are attacks and abductions every day that don't make it to the news for whatever reason. So it's not correct to say that for 2 months they've been quiet. That's not the case. Now we don't know why the senators.
Sorry to cut in there, but
Okay.
generally speaking, some would say that since the emergence of Peter Obi on the platform of the Labour Party, we had less stories from the southeast as opposed to earlier in the year. It's a general statement on the streets of Nigeria.
So it appears that the reporting might have dropped, but the incidents for people who are from that part of the country, they know the reality on the ground. And there's an axis between Anambra and Imo State where there have been repeated abductions of people, despite the presumed presence of security patrols in that area. Now, we don't know why the senator's convoy was attacked. Anambra just elected their governor, so it's only the senatorial elections that they're up for, along with the House of National Assembly elections. So we do not know why he was attacked, but it appears from the report he survived the attack. Now, will any investigation be carried out? And it should be. an investigation should be carried out. But more importantly, that access I've identified, there have been repeated attacks. What are the security agencies doing to forestall any future attacks? And we read he had 4 to 6 policemen. We're not even sure of the exact number. This is one individual because he had the resources, he had the office to get those security operatives attached to him. For the average Nigerian who has to fly the same route, what are his options?
In fact, there are reports that he was in a bulletproof vehicle, and that's why he was. And I mean, we're happy that he's a serving senator and he's alive to tell the story. We hope that before the end of the day, we can get a comprehensive report from his media team to tell exactly what happened there. And the governor of the state also should swing into action to make sure that normalcy returns to Anambra State, particularly.
Yes, both very key points, especially on that information issue, because there's so much there's a confusion with regards to the casualty figures in this, and we need to remember that when we're reporting and when we're discussing these topics, when we talk about police agitating for their rights and not acting in line with what we expect police officers to members of the police force to act as, it's because of the value of their lives. So that is something that really needs to be looked at as well. All right, we've got more for you. Do remember, keep sending your WhatsApp messages into 0809 440 We're taking your comments on the live stream on youtube.com/smooth981fm. And we'll be on Twitter as well at smooth981. If you tag us in your tweets, we'll see them and read them out.
Let's begin with some of the messages on WhatsApp. Tonye is in. He says, with the medical brain drain situation, only one thing is imperative: do not fall sick, in capitals. It's an unrealistic target, but with all the good heads living, who is left to pick up the slack? The thought terrifies me.
All right, Dr. I at CMS says more doctors are leaving, both senior and junior. The universities have been on strike for a year, so imagine that the numbers of that will be left. And most of the new graduates are the ones who trained abroad or in private universities. So the narrative of trained cheaply is false. I don't see a way out, as government is not interested in a good healthcare system. Was any hospital built for COVID-19 in the last 2 years?
Fabian from Ekba is saying the brain drain in the health and a new educational sector, there was a mistake there, will unfortunately continue given our present situation. Of even greater concern is the lack of appreciation for consultants, nurses, and other personnel who opt to remain behind. I hope that Nigerians are listening. Fabian is in Ekbe.
And Sam says the government has no feelings. They don't care about the people. How can a responsible government ignore education?
B in Lekki is saying the crime scene in Nigeria is reminiscent of the mafia activities during the Victorian era. In an information age, the security agencies have not evolved. It's very unfortunate that the policemen will die in such a gruesome manner. May their souls rest in peace.
And Idemapuza from Surulere says doctors and consultants are jackbuying. Let's just take it that Nigeria is now producing and exporting doctors. That's not what we want to be. When we were told to go from a consuming to an exporting nation, this was not it. Thank you. But Idemapuza, seeing your message, let's see. So is now producing and exporting doctors and consultants abroad. This means that they've turned to exportable items after crude oil. Hashtag doctors for sale, says Idemapuza from Surulere. Oh my goodness, what a message. Makes me smile despite all the news that we've got coming. So we'll also take this message or this few messages from Engineer Strategic up on Twitter, who says, we're talking about doctors alone. The effect of bad governments has made professionals, including seasoned engineers, leave the country as well. Perhaps Dr. Ngige and professional politicians will then fill the gap. And he also says, Ms. C, you're right. The media selects what to report, and I guess this made it to the newsroom because the senator is involved. All right, moving on now to more. And we'll take this next one because we are taking it to court. People from the Daily Post court summons ASU over strike. Now, the National Industrial Court has summoned the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, to appear before it today in Abuja over the lingering strike embarked on by the union 8 months ago. So the federal government is asking the court to make ASU resume their academic activities because they've shut the universities for just too long, and well, it looks like nobody's willing to play ball anymore. Take it to court. Mrs. C, what do you say?
I'm truly intrigued as to what the federal government is doing in court. Now,
Trying to make ASU go back to the universities.
and
It's there in their it's there in their handles. Universities is there.
so here's my position, right? You've underfunded education for a very long time. You've voluntarily entered into agreements with ASU. You signed those agreements. You reneged on those agreements, and then you run to court to say what precisely?
That the schools have been shut for 8 months.
And
Why
we
were
want
the,
the students back.
so why were the
studying.
schools shut? Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to basics. Why were the schools shut? The schools were shut because the federal government did not honor its part of the agreement it entered into. That is why the schools were shut. Now, on top of that, you then say that for every day they spent trying to ensure that you kept to your side of the bargain, they won't get paid. Are we serious in this
Now,
country?
it's the National Industrial Court, and hopefully they can ask the lecturers to get back to the
Well,
classroom.
guess what? The National Industrial Court is pro-employee rather than pro-employer. You enter into an agreement, you fail to honor your obligations, and then you run to court to say, or ask the court to say that, irrespective of the fact that we've not honored our obligations, compel the other side, the other party, to continue to carry out its obligations. Seriously?
But you know, in Nigeria, if the federal government takes you to court, they are likely to win that case.
No, it's not every time they win the case, and I can give you plenty of examples right now off the top of my head that they don't win.
And when they don't win, well, not like they can do anything about this if they don't win. But when they don't win, what happens?
So when they don't win, sometimes they obey the judgment, sometimes they file further appeals, which
Mhm.
also get thrown out or
Mm.
dismissed. So here's the thing, right? The airlines complained, threatened to shut down flights. 265 million US dollars appeared from nowhere, right? That's about 120 billion. Now you owe, ASU is asking for 200 billion.
Mm-hmm.
As a sign of good faith, if you are truly sincere about your dealings with them, why not look for 50 billion or 70 billion there now? Pay them and say, look, we've paid 50 or 70 billion. We guarantee or assure you again that in the 2023 budget, we will place the remaining sum in the budget and we will ensure it is approved. As a sign of good faith, when you do that, you are more likely to get ASU to return to the
Now,
classrooms.
Mr. C, you mentioned aviation workers, and it takes me to the next story in from the Nigerian Tribune. Aviation workers to hold peaceful rallies nationwide on Monday. I don't know if the rain will still let them. Well, it's speculated that business activities may be totally grounded today, as aviation unions have directed all workers nationwide to embark on peaceful rallies and public demonstrations across the country's airports.
Yeah. So this one, I fully support and I'm behind it 100%, and I'm going to explain why.
Okay.
A new Civil Aviation Act has been passed. Now, the procedure for promulgating or enacting a new law is that public hearings are held where members of the public and stakeholders contribute memoranda towards the provisions of the proposed act. Now, and these hearings are conducted by both chambers of the National Assembly. Now, guess what? The hearings were indeed held, and at no point was the issue of aviation agencies, trade unions, being considered essential service workers. At no point did that issue come up. At no point was it discussed or deliberated upon. Then, boom, bang, act is passed, provision is there. And they're asking the right questions. Where did these clauses come from? Because at the hearing, right,
Mhm.
the proposed bill is presented in its entirety from the first clause to the last clause, and members of the public stakeholders are at liberty to look through, and then the provisions they do not agree with, they raise objections to them, and discussions are held. Now, their point is this: at no point during the draft submission of the bill was there any consideration for aviation workers being treated as essential service workers like the security agencies. So they're like, you cannot force it upon us. Two, their contention is it violently contradicts the provisions of both national and international aviation law. Now, the bigger question is this: if it is true that the clauses were smuggled in, who smuggled them in? Will the person or persons be held accountable? Will they be made to face the full repercussions of the law during the trial?
All right.
That's an interesting. Okay. Questions from the Punch now. Monkeypox cases hit 241. Lassa fever now 909. News, or rather, numbers coming in from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, talking about the cases so far this year. This is your thoughts.
So this is very troubling news that one would have expected that the numbers would be decreasing, but the numbers are increasing, and it's just we need to continue to stay safe. We need to continue to observe all the pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical controls, and ensure that if we suspect we have any of the symptoms, report to the nearest hospital or medical center, get yourself tested, and get yourself treated. We cannot continue to treat monkeypox and Lassa fever with kid gloves. These are very serious diseases or afflictions, and people have been known to lose their lives. Now, what is more troubling is Lassa fever is traditionally associated with rats, and rats are traditionally associated with dirty environments. It's sad to say, but some Nigerians are still very dirty, and we need to improve our habits. We need to keep clean environments around us. We need to ensure that ourselves we're clean, and that is the only way to beat Lassa fever. In the serious developed countries, they have their own afflictions, but Lassa fever is not one of them.
Punch
Makes you
newspaper.
wish for
Lagos
environmental to come
school.
back sometimes.
Lagos school fence collapses, kills two children. So sad, two children, Sama Said and a yet to be identified girl, have lost their lives when the fence of a school, Covenant Point Academy, collapsed on them at Ajose Street in Amokoko area of Lagos State.
Again, this is very sad news, and our thoughts go out to the families of the two children, and we pray they receive the grace to bear this unfortunate and premature losses. Now, the story goes on to say that a fence was constructed, no pillar, nothing. Even the building itself is shaky. And there have been a recent there's been a recent spate of collapsed buildings, collapsed fences all over the state, and this culminated in the resignation of the Commissioner for Planning. But even after his resignation, we still continue to witness these events. Now, it speaks to a larger problem. One, the monitoring agencies in Lagos State clearly are undermanned and under-equipped because Lagos State is a very densely populated state. Even if they have 1,000 employees, Victor, and they go out every day, Monday through Friday, the numbers are still grossly insufficient to adequately test and ensure that the buildings already up on the ground fully comply with the building code and whatever regulations are in place. So the Lagos State government has to go back to the drawing board, has to reevaluate its monitoring agencies and look for better ways of monitoring and ensuring that a lot of these collapsed buildings or dangerous buildings are detected before they collapse and cause damage to human life. Just last week there was a collapse in the Lekki area, but I think that there were no dead people. There were 6 or 7 survivors. So they need to urgently look at this, and it's instructive that the building materials being used are widely believed to be substandard. Now, that is one of the places they can start from. Test, we have the Standards Organization of Nigeria. Test the integrity of the rods, the construction rods being used. They should go to, they have a building control agency. Go to sites, check the integrity of the bricks being used. And to be fair to them, I have seen videos where they've been to certain sites, they've tested bricks, bricks have been arranged, and you know, just like dominoes, you push one and everything falls down. They pushed the brick and everything collapsed. So they need to redouble their efforts because they must remember, even if they get it right 9 out of 10 times, the one time they do not get it right, that's what hits the news. But we encourage them to keep up their efforts, redouble their efforts, and let's see if we can put this menace to an end.
All right, Mr. C, let's take it right back to the messages on WhatsApp. Benga Komu is saying, I agree with your analyst. I don't envy the incoming president. The problems are so many. It is going to be a house right for him. And this other one, everything in Lagos is now collapsing. One day, Lagos will just collapse. Is that point I'll say shall not stand?
That's not gonna happen. Who is this person?
Ezudo.
Who says the killing of policemen and civilians in our beloved town yesterday is unfortunate, but should not define us as a people. That's not who we are. We are kind, loving, and cultural people. We join everyone else in mourning those that lost their lives.
And he says, I'm from Enugu, paternal head of Unri clan. Olatunde from Ebute Meta is saying, on the federal government has taken ASU to industrial court. The industrial court is only pro-employee until it's the government or any of its agencies that the employer expects to hear some weird reasoning when the court rules against ASU.
And we'll take this one in from Nice. No, Alpha? I'm not sure. School fence collapses and we know the names of the students. Buildings collapse, but we do not get the names of the developers or the owners of the building or the land.
Nice. I believe that's what the person was saying. Now, the number of monkeypox and Lassa fever increasing because most Nigerians are not following the established protocols. Gary is still exposed in places where rats and their droppings and urine abound. The government needs to continue sensitizing the populace, making more use of the community and religious leaders, as well as village health workers to disseminate the information. Fabian Inekbe sends that across.
All right, and we'll take this one, Boston from Sierra Leone, who says the first place the building agencies need to start their job are the deal markets and manufacturing companies of these building materials. They need to start from the source, not from the buildings. All right, and we'll take a final story in, and this one will come in from the Daily Trust. Nigeria's debt stocks hit 45.25 trillion naira. Really, that's the story, Mr. C. Let's get to the analysis.
Okay, so the shocking thing is the debt profile continues to increase, but we cannot see what the money is being used for.
I love how I say it's shocking, but I feel as though no one is shocked.
No. The shock is that it continues to increase astronomically, and you cannot see the corresponding improvement in infrastructure.
Right.
Now, a lot of our borrowing sadly goes to recurrent expenditure, and we have one of the highest debt to GDP ratios in the entire world. Now, on the back of reduced or shrinking revenue, on the back of increased expenditure, do we need anyone to tell us that this is not sustainable? Interestingly, this is a critical question all the presidential aspirants have to answer. They cannot be quiet, they cannot be silent on this. Now, we know for a fact there's a lot of waste in government expenditure. Can that be reduced? That's one way of reducing the deficit, because the DG of the DMO, Miss Oniha, did say that for as long as your budgets continue to be large, the deficits will continue to be large. And to reduce it, you need to reduce what goes into the budget. Now, beyond that, this nonsense of borrowing money to pay salaries has to stop. If you must borrow money, that money must be tied to projects that will bring in revenue. You cannot continue to borrow money to pay salaries. And we need to look at the workforce. The workforce is bloated. And the presidential aspirants, you need to get ready because the debate season this time around is not going to be fun for you guys because if you're not prepared, it will show.
All right, and we've come to the end of the show.
That's right.
Mrs. C, thank you for your analysis. Thank you for your presence through the rain. You made it. Yes. And, go up on social media, find him on Twitter, find him on Instagram at Monsieur C. The C comes with three E's after it, so go check him out. And of course, find us. We are at Smooth981 FM. And personally, I'm at Shook by Martins.
And I'm at Victor Pepper. Let's do this again tomorrow at 7:30. At 8:15 today, we'll take you inside the locker room.
Okay, so quickly pop this in. Oh, where did we go? Pepper?
In-depth analysis of national crime.